Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever YouTube edition of the Stampede with Ryan Jones and Ashton Llanez. Big announcement, ladies and gentlemen. I hinted at it last week, and luckily we were able to make it happen. We are now on YouTube as well as Spotify and Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, excuse me. And my good friend Ashton Llanez, who's been doing the show with me for some time, has officially joined the Stampede and will be joining me full time. So we are now co-hosts of the Stampede. Welcome, my good friend.
Thank you. I am very honored to be part of the Stampede. In some ways, it feels like old times because, as you know, we did run our old radio show called the Stampede, and that itself had opened a lot of opportunities for me. So I can't even imagine what opportunities could be created just from being on the Stampede once again with you in this more digital, up to date, remote version.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we're able to do this. Obviously, with COVID and whatnot. Eventually, I think that it'd be really cool if me and you were able to do this in person at our own place or something like that. But for now, we're going to be doing it via Zoom, and hopefully the quality is okay with everybody. And well, I'll find out after this recording. So, hell, you guys might not even end up seeing this, but I'm really, really happy and excited that Ashton accepted my offer, and he's now part of the Stampede. A show that we actually kind of dates back to our high school days. For those of you who do not know us, well, hi, how are you? Welcome. Stay a while. We have a good time. We talk a lot of football, maybe some other sports occasionally, but we are mainly a football podcast. And we have been doing this show together since 2015.
I want to say 2015.
I think around our sophomore year, we were very fortunate to get have our own little 30-minute segment in our hometown radio station. 102.9 FM Bronco Radio was our home originally. Now I kind of just took the name and ran with it, the Stampede, and here we are today. Hopefully all you new listeners that are seeing us via YouTube, stick around, like the video, subscribe, comment down below. Let's debate in the comments. If you don't like something we say, then let's argue. That's what this is. It's a debate show. We're going to debate football, talk some football. Both of us, I feel like, have a lot of knowledge about the game of football, and I'm just very, very excited that we're finally able to do this.
Looking forward to it. And again, with the football stuff, I played football for nearly 10 years from Pop Warner all the way to high school. Ryan, you played quite a bit of football with me as well from Pop Warner to high school, and also your dad is one of the football coaches in our hometown. So we both definitely have a little bit of football background in this.
Yeah, and I mean, by no means do we have like NFL experience or whatnot, but in my personal opinion, I mean, you do not need to work in the NFL, played in the NFL to have football knowledge. I think that would be the nicest way of saying it. I mean, we've seen it plenty of times where former players go on to be horrible announcers, horrible broadcasters, and horrible analysts. Just because you didn't play football at the highest level doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to NFL football and college football as well. We will talk a little bit about the national championship to start off, just because it's kind of like, I know it feels like, it's a big thing, but we're an NFL show. So plus it seems kind of like a watered down version of the championship. I mean, you had a team with 7 wins in it in Ohio State get absolutely blown out. It wasn't even that competitive of a game. Devontae Smith, absolute monster of a game, over 200 yards receiving. Give me your thoughts on the national championship, man.
Well, I mean, it was before that game, I was curious if Ohio State, if they could match up with Alabama. And when I watched the Sugar Bowl with them against Clemson, a part of me said maybe they could. They outplayed Trevor Lawrence, and Ryan Day. He found a way to outcoach Dabo Swinney, which is really hard to do in college football. So I thought, okay, well, if Ryan Day has found a way to coach against Dabo Swinney and come out with a big win against the reigning national champions, then yeah, he should find a way to at least keep it close with Nick Saban. But no team has really had a way to stop Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, three of arguably the top five players in college football this year, and one of them, Devontae Smith, won the Heisman. So that already tells you how dominant this Alabama team was. This is probably on paper the most dominant Alabama team we've seen in quite a few years, despite the fact that Nick Saban has won 7 national titles.
Yeah, interesting debate thrown around Twitter. I saw 2019 LSU versus 2020 Alabama. Um, I would take the LSU team from last year because of who the quarterback was. Mac Jones has kind of had a certain rise to him, like in his draft stock and whatnot, that Joe Burrow had last year, right? But I don't think that Mac Jones is going to be selected number one overall. And Joe Burrow I think he's a far better prospect in, coming out of their respected SEC schools. Mac Jones, however, I think that his draft stock really improved this season. I think he's going to end up being a first round talent. We're going to be doing a mock draft later in the show. Now, whether or not, now we obviously don't know where Mac Jones is going to go. I think he'd really thrive with a team like the San Francisco 49ers, the West Coast Kyle Shanahan power runs, scheming everything open and whatnot, making the easy throws. I think that he's kind of like a limited athlete. So I think that he would really succeed there. But a report came out that John Lynch says he does not envision the team taking a quarterback in round one. So unless he falls to the second round or they decide to go for Kyle Trask in the second round, I don't envision San Francisco taking a quarterback in round one. But I think a team like maybe New England could benefit from having a Mac Jones. What about you?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of reports about how New England is kind of eyeing Mac Jones, and really that seems like a good match. Bill Belichick, he's not trying to get the fanciest, the most high profile quarterback in the draft. Obviously, the last time he drafted a quarterback that lasted a while was the 199th pick, Tom Brady out of Michigan. We all know how that turned out. So I really think he's looking for a quarterback that can simply do his job. And Mac Jones has really proven under a good system with players that are built around him, he can be the guy that can just do his job. He's definitely a first round potential, in my opinion. The rather New England jumps up to get him, I don't know, but we'll see.
Well, that's the thing, though. I think he might be available at pick 15 for New England. Another thing is Devontae Smith. I know that his draft stock has really risen. Some people don't even think he's the best receiver in this class. You look at Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. I think that personally, I think Jamar Chase has done enough to where he will be the first receiver taken off the board. Jalen Waddle, you have the injury concern. Jamar Chase sat the season out. I mean, I love Jamar Chase as a player. He is my wide receiver number one, but I do believe Devontae Smith will be the number one receiver taking. Going over to the Ohio State side of the ball, did last night and a few of the games that Justin Fields has had this season, do you think it's hurt his stock at all?
It's weird because we're starting to see some mountains and peaks with him, and with other quarterbacks in this class, especially Trevor Lawrence, who just announced that he will be entering this NFL draft. It's not like it's uncommon to have your valleys, but at least with Trevor Lawrence, we knew where those valleys were from. We knew they were from a specific, for him, it was the twisted pass rushes. It's when teams brought those unique blitzes or twists on the interior line. With Justin Fields, it's hard to tell why he sometimes falls the way he does. And I think that kind of inconsistency does hurt his stock a little bit.
I mean, I told you before we started the show, I do have Zach Wilson as my quarterback number 2 now. I think that he has done more with less. And Justin Fields, I think it just overall, I really like the body of work. I like the fact that he is a natural athlete and he's able to run. He had over 60 yards rushing, averaging 10 yards a carry, or over 10 yards a carry in the national championship game. And I like that maybe a team like the Jets could take Justin Fields over Zach Wilson because of his ability to run around behind. And, his ability to run definitely helps them out because they have such a terrible offensive line, Is there anything else you want to kind of add about the national championship? Other than that, I think we're going to kind of move on to Wild Card Weekend unless you have something else you want to talk about.
Just props to Alabama. Just always finding a way to be somehow the best team in college football on a consistent basis. I know how great that LSU team was last year, but the fact that Alabama's doing this like every 2-3 years is just ridiculous. And props to Nick Saban for earning his 7th national championship, the 6th with the University of Alabama, and then one with LSU back in 2003.
I definitely think that Coach Saban is the greatest college coach of all time.
Go, no, just there, yeah, there's no argument for it. Go.
If you debate, you're just trying to be different, right? I mean,
Pretty much.
all right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Wild Card Weekend. We're going to start in order as the games were played. Our very first game, the Buffalo Bills defeating the Colts. I believe the score was 27-24. Your initial reaction to the game, Ashton?
I knew that game would be close, but I was not expecting only 3 points and down to a Hail Mary. Josh Allen throughout most of the game played well, but that last drive definitely hurt him, and it definitely, made people go back to, oh, see, he's not that great of a quarterback yet if he's willing to get sacked for 23 yards during a playoff game. He still did a lot of good things, and he still made a lot of great plays against a good NFL team. So I really think he's still a star. I still think he's a star. That's for a fact. Can he be better? Of course. Can he make less mistakes? Obviously. But I'm definitely not surprised by the outcome. I really thought Buffalo was just the better team. They had a better quarterback, Sean McDermott. He knows how to win these type of games. I knew it was going to be a chess battle between him and Frank Reich, because Frank Reich's another great coach, and he's the reason why the Eagles even had a Super Bowl this past decade. So it was a good game, and other than the 3-point margin and down to the Hail Mary, it was pretty much what I expected.
Yeah, earlier in the year, we kind of talked. I want to talk about the Colts a little bit. Earlier in the year, we kind of talked about how it always seems like they're just kind of a quarterback away, right? And although Philip Rivers did play pretty good in this game, he 27 for 46, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm not a big stats guy, but he did play very, pretty good. I just feel like they're always just the Colts, like since the Andrew Luck retirement, they're just like a piece away, and I think that's their piece as a quarterback. Now you talked about Frank Reich, how he was the only reason that the Eagles won a Super Bowl. I actually, with the firing of Doug Peterson, that has become more clear that he was the offensive mastermind around their success. And I really thought that earlier that Carson Wentz to the Colts was a real possibility. With the firing of Doug Peterson, I really don't think so. I think that Wentz and Hurts are both going to stay put in Philadelphia. But going back to the Colts, I really think that they need to go the veteran quarterback route. Whether that's a Matthew Stafford, whether they can somehow pull off a trade for Deshaun Watson, who we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. What maybe Dak Prescott hits the market and the Cowboys don't re-sign him and they can get him. I really feel like they're just a quarterback away. And I really hope that they have the balls and the guts to move off of Philip Rivers after he had a really good year for them.
Well, I'll say this. I don't think it's impossible for the Colts to get Carson Wentz. I really think that is ideally the best answer in regards to having a veteran quarterback under Frank Reich's system. Why not have the quarterback that basically got your team to the Super Bowl when you were coaching that program? So, and really because of how high Carson Wentz's contract was that the Eagles already paid for, I really think the Colts could find a way to get negotiations done with the Eagles and only give up so much to get Carson Wentz in. He's not, again, he's not Deshaun Watson. He's not fully healthy as far as I can tell. And he's definitely someone who still needs to prove that he's a starting quarterback. So I think you can get him for a fairly good, second round, maybe even third round, low enough if you can argue about how overpaid he might be based on where he is now in his career.
Well, I agree. I don't think it's impossible. I just think because of the firing of Doug Peterson, it's a little more unlikely now. Unfortunately for Buffalo, they did lose Zach Moss for the, I think, remainder of the year, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was hurt in this game. They do have Devin Singletary, though, so I don't think that their run game will really miss a beat. On my previous podcast last week, I did talk about how the Colts are going to have to limit the Allen to Stephon Diggs connection. And they did not do that. 6 catches for Diggs, 128 yards and a touchdown for Diggs. And he had an absolute monster of a game. And I don't know if any team's going to actually be able to slow down Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs, that connection right there. Going into the year, I didn't think it was a match made in heaven because well, I don't think anybody envisioned that Josh Allen was going to have this kind of leap. Uh, you know, in previous years, he was not the most accurate of quarterbacks, but, hats off to him. He's played absolutely unbelievable. The Colts, I don't know really where the Colts go from here. They're picking too high in the draft to get one of the premier quarterbacks. I really think that they got to trade for one. Buffalo, though, next week they got who's Buffalo got again? They got the Ravens next week, so we'll talk about that on our Thursday show. But I think they have a pretty good shot against the Ravens. All right, moving on. We have next game. We have the LA Rams beating the Seattle Seahawks by a score of, if I'm not mistaken, it was 30-20. And man, I just don't think this was a good look for Seattle. I know that they came out today and fired their offensive coordinator. I wrote down in my notes that they should clean house, but they won't. And they actually just extended their GM that has constantly wasted first round picks on Rashad Penny, LJ Collier, some guys that are even out of the league now. Like they had good success back with the Legion of Boom, but since then, they really haven't had any success drafting players. And I think that kind of goes back to Pete Carroll, coming out of the college ranks as a coach and kind of learning and just knowing what players to draft because he played in college against them. I don't know where Seattle goes from here because their offensive line is horrible. I mean, obviously they have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. There's no debate against that, but where does Seattle go from here? I just don't know.
Well, I think regardless of who's GM, you need to put emphasis on linemen on both sides of the ball. Offensively, you have your star player getting sacked consecutive times in a row on almost consecutive games. And then on the defensive side, you got no pass rush. So that's even leaving, quarterbacks with nine fingers or quarterbacks who are just, coming off the bench who are still looking at their LinkedIn account to still throw some yards at you. And I think that's kind of one of the issues with Seattle is that, they don't have guys to protect their quarterback and they don't have guys to get opposing quarterbacks. They're not winning at the line of scrimmage. And no matter how much the game evolves or changes with the different play styles and personnels and offensive schemes, if you don't win that line of scrimmage, odds are you're going to lose that football game. So I think if you're Seattle, no matter what leadership you have there, regardless if it does need a change or not, you need to put emphasis on the offensive line. Rather it's your draft, free agency, go get some big boys up front.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their offensive line and defensive lines, I agree with you. They're both very bad. Other than left tackle, Seattle hasn't really done anything to address how bad their offensive line is. There was something that was tweeted out by Bucky Brooks that I kind of want to talk about on the show. He said that the let Russ cook movement does not lead to W's for the Seahawks. Their longtime blueprint for success is run the ball, stingy defense, and timely plays from Russell Wilson. That will equal wins for them. That's worked for Pete Carroll for a long time. That's why he wants to go back for it, or back to that, because Pete Carroll did come out and say he wants to run the ball more. And my response to that is, are you sure that's a hill you want to die on? I mean, obviously the run game is still important in football, but when you have arguably the best quarterback in the NFL on your roster, you should want to let him cook. The problem isn't Russell Wilson. It's the problem. The problem is the offensive line. And even with this offensive line, you're not going to get a better run game. I don't know why the answer to Pete Carroll is go back to the run game. I mean, they fired their offensive coordinator, but I just don't see how turning into this like Tennessee Titans offense with a heavy power running, only throwing off a play action will work. I mean, you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You don't have to scheme around like that. The problem isn't Russell Wilson. The problem is the offensive and defensive lines, like you said. So
yeah, no, it's nothing against Russell Wilson. He's doing all the problem solving for Seattle at this point. But in regards to Pete Carroll saying we do need to run the ball, I will say to some degree I do agree because one of the things about Seattle's offense is that it's over reliant on the pass. And it's one of the reasons why they didn't win that Super Bowl against the Patriots. I mean, the run game is still important. It's just knowing when to run it and when to throw it and how to keep defenses honest. And I think that's one of the struggles that, from the coaching standpoint, Seattle has had problems with. They've had a hard time just keeping defenses honest. And that's why we're seeing, teams that shouldn't beat Seattle or even be, competing with Seattle in the fourth quarter do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the offensive coordinator's out now, so it's a story that I want to keep a close eye on and see what kind of system that they implement in Seattle. I hope it's a Russell Wilson centric one and not what they had going on. I just hope that they recognize the quarterback that they have. Like they have one of the all-time great quarterbacks in their building, and I hope they don't, run him out of town. Like if I'm Russ, I'm really questioning decisions from your organization. Like he needs an offensive line. Um, One more thing I want to talk about from the Rams side of the ball. If it wasn't clear already, Aaron Donald should be the defensive player of the year. After this weekend, if you still think that TJ Watt is the defensive player of the year over Aaron Donald, I don't know what to tell you because I feel like he single-handedly like won this game for the Rams. I know that's kind of like an overbearing statement, and it's like that's just it's a dumb statement to make. But if you watch the game for like the whole first half, he absolutely dominated. They did not win. The Rams didn't win this game with their offense. Like you had two quarterbacks, you had one with 9 fingers, like you said. Aaron Donald, I think he is the most valuable player in the NFL that is not a quarterback. Other than, all these top quarterbacks, he's clearly up and away the best player and most valuable player in the NFL. And I never thought I'd say that about a defensive tackle. You'd think it'd be about an edge rusher or like a corner, but Aaron Donald's unbelievable. So,
No, I agree. Aaron Donald is dominating in ways that we don't really see defensive linemen dominate, especially in the interior in those, three tech, three eye tech, whatever. Aaron Donald is just a guy who is always double teamed, sometimes even triple teamed. He's a game changer. And I will say, in regards to defensive player of the year, he's definitely first, but I have to give props to Jalen Ramsey. He's somewhere top 3, maybe even a close second, just because a lot of the receivers that he's been lining up against this past year and he shut down. DK Metcalf, he's arguably one of the next best generation receivers in the NFL with his size and strength. I mean, and a lot of people are now comparing him to that Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson type of tier. And yet, every time Seattle has played the Rams, he's been shut down almost completely. I think he only had like 3 catches.
I know he scored a touchdown in this game, but that touchdown came when Jalen Ramsey was not guarding him.
Yeah, no, that was off a zone fluke. That was just a give up free safety play. Definitely not Jalen Ramsey's fault there. Just some miscommunication throughout the entire secondary. But other than that little, fluke pass, Rams did their job on defense.
Yeah, they did.
Hold Seattle to 20 points, knowing that they have, again, one of the greatest quarterbacks and a very talented wide receiver. And then on top of that, you have Tyler Lockett, who's one of those few guys that is really hard to catch up with. Especially,
I really think that Tyler Lockett's probably the best number 2 receiver in the NFL. I mean, you'd take him as your number 1, have him as your number 2. I mean, to be able to shut down this receiving core and this quarterback, it's a real testament to the Rams front office, their coach. There's a reason their defensive coordinator's up for head coaching jobs. Let's just say that. I think remaining in the playoffs of the remaining teams, the Rams do have the best defensive team overall. I do think that their quarterback situation hurts them because Goff has not been playing well at this point and he's hurt. So it's going to be interesting to see them go up against the Packers. We'll talk about them going up against the Packers more on our Thursday/Friday show, whichever day that gets posted. Let's move on to one of the more exciting games over the weekend. The Buccaneers beating the Washington football team. I think I just want to talk about Taylor Heinicke. Like, we know what the Buccaneers are. They have one of the best offenses. Brady's been playing great. But Taylor Heinicke may have just earned himself a job. He's PFF's highest graded quarterback over the wild card weekend. And I think Ron Rivera somehow he finds He finds this guy off a practice squad, and he might have just earned himself a job because he played unbelievable.
No, I agree. He really played his butt off, and for him to play as well as he did, coming off the practice squad, regardless of what team you're playing for and what team you're playing against, just wow. I mean, it blew me away watching that game, and he's probably the offensive reason why Washington was even able to stay with Tampa Bay till to the second half of the game. Just that's a guy that's worth building around, especially since he's a practice squad guy. So you're gonna have him for cheap. You
Well,
know, it
they're going
makes
to
it.
have to sign him to an actual contract now
Yeah,
because
but
if
they're
he was
not
a,
going to
because
sign.
he was
Yeah,
a
but
good
one game
contract.
doesn't all of a sudden make you a $15 million man.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I'm just saying you're going to have to roll out some sort of multi-year deal to keep him because
It'll
I
be
mean,
a 2 year, $25 million contract.
well, I no, I yeah, and I agree. I just
Maybe like
it's
23 or
it's
22. I don't
really
know.
rare that this guy comes in like a practice squad guy. Like we haven't seen something like this since like maybe what Kurt Warner, right? Like, and I don't want to say I don't think he's Kurt Warner. I don't think he's one of the all-time great quarterbacks, but for a team like Washington that's picking what 20th, 19th in the draft now, um, and they're going to miss out on the top quarterback prospect. This is a sign of hope for them. So, they could continue to build around him, maybe get an offensive lineman or a receiver, and just kind of build around Taylor Heineke to see what you can do because Washington made the playoffs with rotating doors at quarterback. Like you had Dwayne Haskins, who's not even on the team anymore, going to the strip club. Alex Smith and all his injury history. You had one other guy before you found Heineke, and I mean, his interception wasn't even his fault. I mean, it was tipped. I mean, so and I think the real thing that kind of impressed me about Heineke is his ability to run the football. 6 carries, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Um, the leading rusher on his team as well. I think that he for this game played better than Alex Smith would have because Smith isn't as mobile as Heineke is, and Heineke was able to escape pressure. He's going up against Todd Bowles, the Buccaneers defensive coordinator, who loves to blitz. Alex Smith, would not have been able to escape. He's an injury-prone, non-mobile guy, and Heineke's ability to escape running the football, I think it really fits with this Washington football team that has such a shaky offensive line. Um, there's not much I want to talk about on the Buccaneers side of the ball, other than the fact that Tom Brady's playing great and they have a really good receiving core. So,
I mean, Tampa Bay to me is just basically the Pro Bowl roster of 2012. Basically, you have all these guys who were somewhere in the Pro Bowl from 2010 to 2013, basically all joining forces, all being coached by one person, all wearing the same uniforms and all that, and then just seeing what they can do talent wise. And so far, it's looking good. And they're being luckily led by one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, as much as that hurts me to say as a Raider fan. But and they're so far playing good. They're not playing consistent, but they're playing good. And I don't know how far they'll get them into the playoffs. It's just something that we'll have to see 1 week at a time. I don't really see them making it past the divisional round as they got to play the Saints for the third time.
something we'll talk about later or in a future show. Obviously, they're taking on the Saints. We'll give our predictions for that game on our next show. Moving on to the Sunday games, we have the Ravens beating the Tennessee Titans. Very low scoring affair, 20-13. Lamar Jackson doing just enough in this game, running the football and throwing the football. I want to kind of talk about the Titans. Now, I know that we have somewhat of a disagreement regarding Mr. Derrick Henry and how good the Titans can be. I was saying it all year long that the Titans were pretenders. I don't think they can win a Super Bowl with the way their roster is constructed. Clearly not because their defense isn't very good. I just don't think you can build your team and your offense around Derrick Henry because, as we've seen, if you don't have an elite quarterback, let's be honest, Ryan Tannehill is not an elite quarterback. He's a good, solid. I think he's a franchise QB. I think you could build around him. But if you don't have one of these elite guys that can create offense for themselves, like Mahomes, Rodgers, Wilson, you're not going to be able to win very many games, or at least, I mean, you can win 10 games, but you're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl. Derrick Henry shut down in this game, 18 carries for 40 yards, averaging 2.2 yards a carry. He didn't run the ball very good. And if a team is willing to stack the box and dare Ryan Tannehill to throw, the Titans just aren't a very good football team.
No, I agree. I really think Ryan Tannehill is a simply do your job quarterback, and he's really proven to be good at it. Considering how good of how long he's been in the NFL, and the fact that he had a consistent starting job for the Dolphins, but just because of the time the Dolphins had bad management and bad coaching, then he was able to be acquired by Tennessee for cheap prior to his new contract. I will say, if you are going to be a run heavy offense like Tennessee, it has to be made. It has to come with a really good defense. It has to. And if you don't have a good defense, and Tennessee, we all know their defense is it's it's there. It's not great. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney hoping that they would get.
He got hurt, so
but he got hurt.
Yeah.
So other than that, they're basically hurt. They're not good enough on defense to allow that offense to help them out. And again, I don't mind running the ball, let alone having a really good running back like Derrick Henry being.
I don't either.
But if you're going to make him the center of your offense, don't make it obvious. I mean, all those times that he got tackled for a loss or barely got 1 or 2 yards, that was because they had 3 tight ends, 4 tight ends, 2 fullbacks. And like, they made it so obvious that they're going to run the ball with Derrick Henry. When you already know that this guy on one-on-one with any linebacker would be a mess for the defense. You don't have to bring 9, 10. You're just attracting more guys in the defensive tackle box. And I think by actually spreading the offense out a bit, you would have probably helped Derrick Henry more than hurt
him. Another thing is, Derrick Henry goes for 200 yards. He's the focal point of this offense and whatnot. He has a great season, obviously. Do you think maybe it just has to do with Henry getting kind of tired and worn out over the course of the season? Like, if you were going to use a running back that much, maybe it's a better idea to, maybe take it easy with Henry during the regular season. Just because, or, just split carries with him, and I know they had Evans and McNick. They have a few other backs, but maybe you want to invest in a backup running back that can carry the load when, instead of Henry. Not instead of Henry, just maybe split carries, and then once it gets to the postseason, then you can run Henry into the dirt, because it seems like you just kind of ran him into the dirt during the regular season. I know that's what got them here, but you have a really good receiving core if you're Tennessee. You have AJ Brown, you have Jonnu Smith, you have Corey Davis. You have a really solid receiving core that I think you should lean on a little bit more. I mean, I think AJ Brown's one of the top 10 receivers in this game. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I mean, is there any truth to me saying that Henry maybe he just they ran him into the dirt? Maybe he was just tired.
Well,
Wasn't breaking tackles like normal.
It's not the fact that they're running him into the dirt. It's the fact that they're just telling him to run into a pile of 20 guys at a time. And again, every time they plan a run play with Derrick Henry, it's in the most obvious formations possible. And it's all it's doing is attracting more and more defensive players. Do you really think Tennessee's backup tight ends are going to block, that 4th linebacker or that extra defensive lineman? No. So, of course, when Derrick Henry's handed the ball and there's no wide receivers out there to spread the defense out, then of course, just run into nothing but piles of bodies. And we've seen how when he was with the University of Alabama under Nick Saban, when they have, again, talented receivers, mediocre quarterback that can do his job, all of a sudden, Derrick Henry, he wasn't run into the ground. He still had 30 carries a game in college, but he was able to still run for nearly 2,000 yards again still. You know why? Because Nick Saban was smart enough to still have honest formations. He was able to keep opposing defenses from having 9, 10 guys because they knew they still had to cover their receivers. Tennessee's offense is the easiest to defend because you know what's coming before the ball's even snapped, let alone the cadence.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, is up for I think he's been interviewed by every single team with a head coaching vacancy, so he's gone, right? A, I mean, I don't.
And
It's
to
going
me,
to be
that's for the
interesting.
better then.
Yeah, it's gonna. It's. I mean, they run this sort of Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Gary Kubiak, West Coast zone run kind of offense, right? Um, it's gonna be interesting to see how they adjust offensively next year without their really good offensive coordinator, right? So, all right, let's move on to the Chicago Bears New Orleans Saints game. Saints won 21-9. And I'm gonna be honest here. I think the most interesting part of this game was just the fact that it was broadcasted on Nickelodeon, and you had an F-bomb drop on Nickelodeon, right? Cordero Patterson, man, whew, gonna get fined for that one for sure, right? I mean, that this
Yeah.
game
Oh
was
man.
just kind of like, it really was just kind of a boring game in my opinion. I mean, I think Mitch Trubisky. I think the era of Mitch Trubisky is finally over. He'll be signed somewhere as a backup, and he'll probably be one of the best backups in the NFL. But that's what he is. He played a clean game, didn't really throw the ball deep. The Bears couldn't run the ball. Drew Brees looked old. I mean, Drew Brees, I don't think played a very good game, despite what the numbers were. 28 for 39, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns. Um, look, I don't trust the Saints going forward. I mean, overall, I think they have the best quarterback or best roster probably left among all the playoff teams, but I just don't trust their quarterback. We've seen him kind of flame out in the playoffs. I mean, we'll talk about what the Saints' chances are go in the divisional on Friday or Thursday, whichever day it is. But um, I don't know. I'm just a little lukewarm on Drew Brees at this point. What about you?
I'm happy to see Drew Brees back. I really think that he helps the passing game better with the Saints. Um, I do think after having 11 broken ribs, though, I'm definitely hesitant to see him actually perform. At least go back to his 350-yard games and 4 touchdown passes that he usually has almost every game. I really think that if the Saints do want to go deep into the playoffs and compete with either the Green Bay Packers or the Tampa or the LA Rams in the NFC Championship game, they're going to really be asking a lot from Alvin Kamara. And again, he's going to be one of those guys where it might seem like he might get run to the ground like Derrick Henry is in the AFC, but at least under Sean Payton, those formations, they run all kinds of formations to where it's hard to know when Alvin Kamara is getting the ball or not. And Drew Brees, he's still one of the best uh, passers in the game, and despite the fact that he can't really throw the ball further than 25 yards, he's still good at throwing those slants, those curls. Saints, in my opinion, are probably the hardest team to defend in regards to their RPO systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting Michael Thomas back definitely helped. He caught a touchdown in this one, 5 catches, 73 yards. Kamara averaging over 40 yards a carry. He had 99 for 23 carries and a touchdown. I think the difference between an Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry is obviously their ability to receive and catch the football. But not only that, it's the fact that you have a competent backup in Latavius Murray. I think that's the difference in Tennessee and the Saints. Um, I just kind of feel bad for the Bears. You know, they have such a great defense, and they're able to hold the Saints and this high-powered offense to 21 points, yet they can't put up more than 9, right? And I think that once you finally get a quarterback in here, the Bears are going to be a very scary team. Now, who that quarterback is going to be, I really think they should go the veteran route. Go out, get Deshaun Watson if you can. Probably very unlikely, obviously, but sign Dak Prescott if you can. Matthew Stafford, very unrealistic that they would be able to get him because they're interdivision, and I don't think the Lions would ever, you know, make a deal with Chicago. But if you're able to, I mean, you might as well, right? But I don't know what other veteran quarterbacks that they'd be able to acquire, but anything could be better than what they currently have in Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles. So maybe Carson Wentz. I mean, it's the NFC, so I don't know, but it's not in the same exact division, so I don't know.
They definitely want to get Kirk Cousins because he's already playing for.
Interdivision. That's interdivision as well. So
Yeah.
I don't see the
Well, he's
Vikings.
already getting paid good for the Vikings, so for him, it would somehow be a pay cut for him to go to the Bears.
Yeah, and I don't know what's next for the Bears. I don't think I feel they're wasting so much defensive talent. They have Khalil Mack, obviously, and Danny Trevathan and Eddie Jackson, Akeem Hicks, Kyle Fuller, Robert Quinn. God, they have a lot of defensive talent, and they're just wasting all of it, man. I mean, oh wow,
Don't forget Jalen Johnson.
dude, Jalen Johnson, one of our favorite players, both me and you, coming out of the draft last year. He's unbelievable. You know, I think it's finally time that we move on to my favorite game of the weekend. As many of you know, or as you know, you probably don't know this. Whoa, my light. Whoa, you see that? That was weird. What the heck?
Your room's haunted, man.
Dude, it's still going. What the heck? Okay, that was so strange. All right, well, I hope I'm not being haunted. That was so weird. That honestly tripped me out. Okay. For those of you that do not know, I'm a Denver Bronco fan, but I'm also a very, very big fan of Baker Mayfield. Maybe it's because we're both short. Maybe it's because we both kind of have the same attitude about things, but my boy Baker Mayfield, 21 for 34, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns in an absolute rout. Browns over Steelers, 48-37. I know the score seemed close, but trust me, if you watch this football game, it was not close. 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. And after that, I think the Browns kind of just ended up playing pretty even defense the rest of the time, right? This was an absolute rout. They have two. Wow. I'll let you talk because I'm just too happy about this.
I will say I wasn't surprised that Cleveland won, especially since they won 24-22 in their last game against the Steelers, which was, I believe, just week 16 or 17.
Week 17, Big Ben
But
Roethlisberger did not play. So
yeah, but for them to do what they did against Ben Roethlisberger, who did play in the playoff game, without having their head coach on the sideline because of COVID protocols,
as well as one of the best guards in the NFL. So
right?
I
Yeah,
know it's a guard, and it
they had a
does not
practice
impact the
squad
game
guard.
much, but
Yeah, I actually watched him. I actually saw the video of him doing his practice reps in the parking lot because he found out last second. Um, I mean, for Cleveland to do what they did in that situation that week against the Pittsburgh team that had everything they brought, and again, the Steelers, they are an overhyped team this year. They're the one team that we all know that, despite their 12-win record in the regular season, that they played mediocre to not so good teams. Four of them being the NFC East, and they even lost to one of them. So it's really good to see that Cleveland's finally emerging as a good team. They're going to be tested next week. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I'm really happy for Cleveland to get their first win since 1995, just like the Buffalo Bills did this past weekend as well. It's great to see the AFC picture change quite a bit since Tom Brady has left Foxborough. And I don't know how much of that is because Tom Brady left or not, but it's just good to see the AFC picture just change.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that we're in good hands as far as quarterbacks are concerned going forward. I mean, yeah, Baker Mayfield is like 25, 26 years old, and he's still considered a young quarterback. He's the oldest starting quarterback in the AFC remaining. You have Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Baker remaining.
All 25 and younger.
All 25 and younger. And I really, really, and I want to talk about Big Ben. I know he had 500 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, but all those came when like the game was already over. He had 4 turnovers in this one. The Steelers couldn't run the ball. You have Juju Smith-Schuster dancing around like a moron on the field for some reason, and before the game, saying, "Okay, let's talk about the Browns." Is the Browns quote, right? I know everyone's heard it, everyone's seen it. As two people, me and you, who have both played football, I know it was only at the high school level, but if we saw people from Fireball, Los Banos, Mendota dancing on the middle of our field, on the horseshoe that we have back in our hometown, and
We would have scored 28 points in the first quarter as well.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And you see him talking crap on, you know, TV, ABC 30, Action News, right? You see him talking crap saying, hey, it's just the Broncos. Broncos are the Broncos. They're no big deal. They're not, saying that they're just a bunch of gray faces. They have a few good players, but you're confident. Look, if somebody from, like, you do not want to add more fuel to the fire. Like, you had already lost, what, 4 of your last 5 games or something like that if you're the Steelers? I think it was 4 of your last 5 or 4 of your last 6 games because they started 11-0. If you're Mike Tomlin and let's be honest, like, Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches of all time, right? You have to put a stop to this or at least move off of Juju. I know he's a free agent now, and you have Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Chase Claypool. You have a good receiving core without him. I mean, I'm letting Juju walk. I take that garbage somewhere else. You don't see Tom Brady doing any of this, right? You don't see any of the well-run organizations doing it. You don't even hear about this out of Cleveland. Like, as much as people want to bag on Baker Mayfield and whatnot, you don't see Baker Mayfield going out before the game and saying, the Jets are the Jets. Like, you don't see him going out and just talking crap about teams, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Juju? Maybe I'm overreacting, maybe just because, and I'm not trying to actively root against a player either. I know it may seem that way, but it's just like, I don't know. As a football coach and a football analyst and a former football player, it's not a good look, and it's not something I would want on my team. So, what say you?
I will say, under the Steelers, the given situation that we have at hand with the Steelers, they're known for having, arguably the most disciplined players in the NFL. This is just something that's been part of their franchise for many years. You know, from winning their Super Bowls in the '70s to Mike Tomlin's era back in the 2000s. I mean, all these players were all just focusing on the game at hand, being the best football players they can be, and trying to get to the Super Bowl. That's always been the ultimate goal for the Steelers. And what's scary about the Juju Smith kind of dancing while also losing in NFL games is the fact that this is a Steelers team that has been known for getting receivers in the most random places. They're like the Patriots of wide receivers. They can find their next guy in that fifth round, sixth round.
Yeah.
They've done it for years.
Well, Juju was a late round pick. I mean, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, both late round picks. And Juju is a free agent. If you have that good of a receiving core, I don't think I'm going to re-sign you long term, especially after what's gone on this year. And look, I don't want to compare Juju to Antonio Brown because that's a whole different situation. There's a lot of legal stuff going
Completely
on.
different.
There's a lot of legal stuff going on with Antonio Brown. I mean, I don't want to compare him to him, but it's just a distraction like the Antonio Brown situation was, right? And I don't think, obviously not to the extent, because there's a lot of legal stuff going on that we don't know about. And I don't know. I just, it seems like the Steelers the last few years haven't been the franchise that you described, that they used to be. This disciplined, hard-nosed, you know, disciplined, organized football team. They haven't been that for a few years. And I hope that whether or not this is Big Ben's last game as a Steeler, we'll find out. I hope that this next era for Steelers football kind of reverts back to what they were. Because I don't know if they're paying attention, but they may be the worst team in their division next season. The Browns, I don't think they're going anywhere. They have a lot of young talent on this roster, and they're all under contract. Lamar Jackson, we know what he can do. He's an MVP, and the Steelers have a great coach in John Harbaugh and an awesome defense. And Joe Burrow is on the rise. He was having a great season and probably would have been the rookie of the year if he had not gotten hurt. I mean, we talk about Justin Herbert and Burrow. We could debate that all day long, whatever. But the Steelers are definitely on a decline, and then next season they may be the worst team in their division if this continues. So
it's definitely unique to see Pittsburgh where they're at, despite the fact that they actually had a good regular season on paper, and despite it's just a surprise that they got dethroned in the AFC North the way they did, despite just I don't know. The Steelers, it's just weird to see where they are.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and again, as you
maybe
said,
I'm over.
there's a
Maybe
chance that they could be last in the AFC North next year.
I'm glad that you said that because I thought maybe I was going to ask you. Maybe I'm overreacting, but Big Ben's probably the worst quarterback in his division, right? I mean,
It's definitely more realistic that they'll be second or third. Fourth, I could see happening if Cincinnati gets the right guys. And Cincinnati, they're still pretty high up on the draft board, so there is a good chance, which is why I wouldn't say it wouldn't be as big as a surprise if the Steelers just all of a sudden fell down to fourth, because we don't know how much of the house they're going to be cleaning. We don't.
I mean, I think it's very realistic that Cincinnati could go like 8-8 next season because of who their quarterback is, and they have a lot of offensive talent. I mean, the defense isn't great outside of Jesse Bates, but I think it's not unrealistic that the Steelers could end up last in their division next season. All right. Well, that is enough of Wild Card Weekend talk. I do want to talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson potentially on the move out of Houston. Another thing that came out today is Andre Johnson, former Texans wide receiver, tweeting, "If I'm Deshaun Watson, I am standing my ground, yada, yada." And then DeAndre Hopkins comes out, quote tweets it, and says, "When Andre talks, you listen." So, two former players of this organization that have played under this owner that not a lot of people like, and Deshaun Watson still has not returned to any of their calls. I want to ask you, obviously, we don't know for a fact whether Deshaun Watson could be on the move or not. Where do you think the most realistic destination is? There's a lot of teams that would want him. New England, the Colts, the Bears, the Broncos, the Dolphins, the 49ers. There's a lot of teams that would want him. What do you think the most realistic trade option is? You tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
Realistic. Well, I would say the best place for him would be the Colts, because that's all they're really missing is a younger, more talented quarterback, and Deshaun Watson would definitely fit there. But realistically, I would see, maybe the Jets, maybe the Eagles if they can get rid of Carson Wentz, if they still want Jalen Hurts to wait another year. Cowboys won't. They're already too invested in either Dak Prescott or they're going to go the cheap route. They're definitely not going to do Deshaun Watson. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see. It's hard to picture him moving, especially this early. Usually, we see more of those veteran guys kind of move. We rarely see a quarterback all of a sudden just change franchises because they're in a place that's deteriorating. Though it's something we always wish happens. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see what could happen, because and this happened even just a couple of years ago. Where people thought that, hey, maybe Russell Wilson will consider moving if Seattle has no plan to refix their defense, to refix the weapons around him. And luckily they got a big gold contract done to keep him longer. But Houston, they already have their contract with Deshaun Watson. So it's hard to see a big move like this after the fact, especially now that there's no Bill O'Brien to basically trade away your best player anymore.
Okay.
It's a unique
I'm
situation.
throw out,
it's too new.
It is. I want to throw out my potential trade that I've seen other people throw it out on Twitter and whatnot, but here's what I'm thinking. Now, we do not know if Tua is the future. He obviously did not play that well down the stretch for the Dolphins. If you are the Texans and you're offered Tua, the third pick, and the 18th pick, the Dolphins have 2 first-round picks this draft, and Tua Tagovailoa, plus more maybe in future drafts, maybe a third-round pick in this draft. Who knows, right? That's the basis to get me started. Tua, the third pick, and the 18th pick. Send those to Houston. Houston gets their quarterback of the future. They get to kind of reset and restart. They also get the third pick. They could take Penei Sewell to shore up that offensive line. You already have a franchise left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, right? You can add Penei Sewell to the right tackle, protect Tua and you have the 18th pick, you could add a wide receiver or someone else, a corner, an edge rusher, whatever you feel like you need. And then the Dolphins with let's be honest about this. The Dolphins might be a quarterback away or good quarterback play away. They went 10-6 last season with poor quarterback play and a really, really good defense. If you add Deshaun Watson to the Dolphins, I think they're immediately a Super Bowl contender. Now, whether or not this happens, I don't know. But I don't think either team would say no to that trade, especially if Deshaun Watson does not want to play for the Texans anymore. And the Deshaun Watson reports came out, if the Dolphins were in contention, he would waive his no trade clause to go to the Dolphins.
Well, we'll find out for sure on March because that's when the new NFL calendar league starts. But I don't know. I really don't see the Dolphins kind of doing that on their end, because I think on the longer term, if you have a chance to build around a cheap quarterback, especially if you have really high draft picks to where you can have talented players right off the bat for cheap around your cheap quarterback, it's hard to give that up. Like as good as Deshaun Watson is, and as decent as the players that you have already put in your roster that could work around him, there's too much upside to just saving that money, keeping your drafts, and essentially building a much better team on top of your 10-16.
Well, like I said, it's an interesting topic, interesting concept. And I really do think that the Dolphins would be the most realistic trade options, because I don't know, does any other team have multiple first round picks? Do the Jaguars? I think the Jaguars do. The Jets do, and the Jaguars do. They're the only other teams with multiple first round picks, and that's like the basis of what you need to trade for one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, who could be like a generational talent. Maybe I'm overreacting, but Dabo Swinney did call him the Michael Jordan, and he had an absolutely outstanding year with garbage around him. I think the Texans will be better than last year going into this year, but if you're Deshaun Watson and the ownership and isn't taking into consideration your opinion on who the next coach should be and whatnot, I think that I think there's a real good chance that he gets traded. I just think Miami's the most realistic option. So unless you have anything else to add on Deshaun Watson, we can begin our latest mock draft.
I'm ready for this mock draft.
All right, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, we here at the Stampede perform weekly mock drafts, no matter what time of the season it is. I don't care if it's week 1 or week 17. We now know the first
25?
24 or 25 picks 24. Are officially in place. 24. And we are here for another mock draft. Let's begin. Did you decide whether or not you wanted the odds or the evens?
I will do the odds.
All right. Well, you're on the clock.
All right. Well, with that said, with the first pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence, quarterback at the University of Clemson.
Well, no surprise there, right?
Yeah, pretty much an easy pick. I basically just said all that just to put some time onto the show.
All right.
Basically, best quarterback, best player in college football, or at least one of the best players in college football. He definitely can improve. We've definitely seen how he has some flaws at the college level, but he's definitely the easiest guy that you can develop and coach around, no matter what team he goes to.
Yeah, I don't think there's much that needs to be said about this guy. He's the best prospect in the draft. He has been for a few years now, and we just kind of been waiting for him to come out for like 2 years, and here he finally is. Congratulations, Jacksonville. You have your franchise quarterback, and hopefully you can build around him and, eventually become a Super Bowl contender. Next up, pick number 2. I am on the clock with the New York Jets, and I'm going to be taking my quarterback number 2 in this draft, Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU, who I have just absolutely fallen in love with as a prospect. He is 6'3", 210. He has a cannon for an arm. He's accurate. I love his pocket presence. And I know everyone's going to want Justin Fields here or Penei Sewell, but I really, really like I've fallen in love with Zach Wilson. He's my quarterback number 2.
All right. So number 3 is the Dolphins.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I think he should be already top. What? Sorry, I'm using this website for the very first time.
Just go to sort by position and go all. I know who you're looking for, right?
I'm trying to find the offensive lineman from Oregon.
Yeah, he's the number 2 ranked player on the draft board.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that guy.
Okay. Penei Sewell, offensive tackle.
Penei Sewell, that's his name. There you go. That's the guy that you have a cheap quarterback, and the number one priority, and especially after learning from Cincinnati, you need to protect your quarterback. So they got an offensive lineman last year. I believe he was out of USC, but extra reassurance. It never hurts to have the better offensive lineman, especially in a division where you're playing against a really good Bills team. Jets team is rebuilding, and of course, a consistently well-coached Patriots team, despite their record or how all of a sudden they're no longer in the playoffs. It's always worth having that good O-line. You definitely want to win for line of scrimmage, and that's something you got to take care of right after having a solid franchise quarterback like Tua.
Yep. I do believe Penei Sewell will be the first non-quarterback taken. He's an absolute stud of a prospect. Some people wanting the Dolphins to take a wide receiver here, potentially Devontae Smith out of Alabama, but I do not see that happening. I think that Penei Sewell should be and will be the pick here. Next up on the clock is me, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, there's a lot of different routes that the Falcons could go here. But me personally, if I am sitting in the GM chair of the Falcons, I'm not taking an edge rusher. I'm not taking a linebacker. I'm going to take Justin Fields, the quarterback out of Ohio State, who I believe needs to sit for a few years anyways. He could sit behind Matt Ryan. I think it's very clear that their owner, Arthur Blank, I believe his name. I don't remember his name. It's very clear that their owner is patient. Matt Ryan is an older quarterback, but I still think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think you can run it back with this receiving core you have. And hopefully the defense of the Falcons played well down the stretch. Hopefully that can carry on into next year. And maybe with Drew Brees out of the league, I believe this will be Drew Brees' last year, you can compete for a playoff spot being the second best team in your division. You let Justin Fields sit for a year or two, and when you're ready, you bring him on. He's returning to the state of Georgia where he transferred out of. I just a lot of storylines here, and I think I don't think the Falcons will be in this position again to be able to take a franchise quarterback this high. And although he's my QB3, I do believe he's a franchise quarterback. I know you're not going to agree with this pick, but go for it. Argue with me.
Yeah, I think it's too high of a pick to get a quarterback you plan on just sitting. It'd be one thing if you had picked 20 to 32 with it to get that backup quarterback that you're going to end up starting probably the next year. But I think if you still have Matt Ryan for, let's say, another 2 years, you definitely need to either get him a weapon or get something that will help Atlanta's defense get much better defensively, especially when you're facing Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Teddy Bridgewater on an annual basis twice.
Well, next week you can have the even picks, and then you'll get to choose something else. For now, Justin Fields is going to the Falcons, and you are on the clock with the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry if you could hear my dog barking in the background. Anyways.
I didn't, so I think you're fine.
Okay, cool.
Well, since Atlanta did not,
top needs. Obviously, the Bengals.
That's a weird pick. I'm sorry. I'm so weird to see Justin Fields being in Atlanta uniform. I just don't see it happening. But I think with the number 5th pick in the NFL draft, I think Cincinnati, they'll learn from their mistakes, and they'll get Samuel Cosmi, the offensive tackle out of Texas. They need protection, and according to this board, he is the highest rated offensive tackle outside of Penny Sewell. I'm not good with those names. I'm terrible.
I wouldn't look. I think that I would have gone receiver here for the Falcons. I would have paired up Jamar Chase.
Receiver. I did almost go receiver, but I don't think Cincinnati's O-line is good enough to where you can just heavily rely on passing.
Well, I don't either. I just don't think that the value is there for Cosme. I don't even think he's the best tackle on the board, but whatever. It doesn't. I mean, an offensive lineman being taken there for the Bengals, and this is going to be interesting. So the Eagles with 2 quarterbacks, no head coach. I think it's very obvious what needs to happen here. I'm going to go receiver here. I do believe that Devontae Smith will be the first receiver taken. I'm going to take him here for the Eagles. I think that he kind of opens everything up. You've missed on receivers in the past. You need to help out whoever your quarterback is. You have a good enough offensive line. You need a weapon here. We've been saying it for years with the Eagles. You're in position to get the Heisman Trophy winner here. So let's take him. Devontae Smith to the Eagles.
That makes perfect sense to me. And why not get a wide receiver who played in the same program as Jalen Hurts? Odds are these guys were teammates, assuming Devontae Smith was on the roster the same year as Jalen Hurts was before he transferred to Oklahoma, for his senior year. So you already know the connections will probably be pretty solid there. Good chemistry there. And no matter who the new head coach is, he'll have a good duo to work with.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so you're on the clock. You have the Detroit Lions. Interesting. A lot of ways you can go here. I mean, they need wide receiver help, linebacker, maybe even take a quarterback, up to you.
Teams like Detroit are always just easy to pick because they need everything. So why not just give them the best player on the board and give them, according to the Draft Network, I'll give them Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU, because he's said to be the best prospect so far on the board.
All right. I don't hate the pick. I think Jamar Chase is my wide receiver number 1 over Devontae Smith. Might be a hot take at this point, but yeah. All right. I like that the Lions are potentially going to lose Kenny Galladay, their number 1 receiver. So you get his replacement here, and hopefully Matthew Stafford, if you keep him, he can carry you to the playoffs, because that's honestly all you can hope for Detroit at this point, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Detroit.
All right. Interesting. Carolina at pick number 8. Could use linebacker, could use corner. They need offensive tackle. Dark horse team to take a quarterback here. Trey Lance is on the board as well as Mac Jones. Do I think they're going to take a quarterback? No. So I'm going to go kind of a surprise pick here. They are stacked at wide receiver. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts, the tight end / receiver hybrid player, an absolute stud out of Florida, to give Teddy Bridgewater another weapon. They need help at tight end, and he could definitely help them. He is probably the best weapon in the class.
Yeah, I like the pick. I mean, Kyle Pitts, he looks identical to Darren Waller in regards to his size and speed and athleticism.
That's a really good comp, actually. I like that.
I really thought Carolina would have maybe gone to the defensive side of the ball, especially since they're missing some leadership at the, defensive linebacker position. Maybe get Micah Parsons out of Penn State, but yeah, I still think it's a good pick. I think he's a safe receiver to go to. Obviously, he's going to win a lot of those jump balls and one-on-one matchups. So he's an easy guy to throw to if you're going into a different quarterback or if you're still having Teddy Bridgewater. Now let's see. With the 9th pick in the NFL draft, and Ryan, I get to mess with your Denver Broncos. This should be fun.
Be realistic, please.
Oh man, decisions. They've already picked up some receivers.
Yeah, we do. Receiver is the last thing the Broncos need. So
yeah.
Edge rusher, corner, quarterback, linebacker, all big needs for the Broncos.
You know what? I do think that Von Miller is not going to be the same old Von Miller we all know and love when he comes back. I think they're going to want that safe, cheap guy to replace him. So I'll give you Quiddy Pay, the edge out of Michigan.
I like the pick. I had him in my last mock going to the Denver Broncos, and I think it's very likely that Von Miller will not be in a Denver Bronco uniform next year. So you get a guy to pair with Bradley Chubb, and you have a really good edge rushing duo for the future. All right, moving on. The Dallas Cowboys. A lot of interesting ways I could do this. Assuming Dak resigns, I will not be taking a quarterback here, even though Trey Lance is on the board. They need help at cornerback. My light just did that thing again. Dude,
Your place is haunted.
what is going on? It's plugged in. Well, I don't know. I just need to get a new one. So, cornerback is obviously a big need for them. They have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. I could go offensive tackle here. Rashawn Slater and Christian Darrisaw still on the board. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to like the narrative driven. I'm going to go Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama, pairing him with his former teammate at corner, Trevon Diggs. And hopefully these two corners can grow together. They're running the same scheme at Alabama. Here they are playing for Dallas in the state of Texas, running the same exact scheme. What do you think about the pick?
Well, I like the defensive route. Corner's definitely one of their things. So is linebacker. I think they're good on defensive line, though. I think it's a pretty good pick. You could have gone either Patrick or Micah Parsons out of Penn State, and it would have still worked out for Dallas Cowboys. Regardless, they do need a lot of help defensively.
Well, I think they're set at linebacker. You remember they have Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, so I think they're
Well,
good.
yeah, but they need someone to replace Sean Lee.
Yeah, I guess. Micah Parsons slipping down the board. Could he be taken here at pick 11? You're on the clock with the New York Giants.
New York Giants.
Edge rusher, linebacker, wide receiver, corner. They need a lot.
They do need a lot, but I will say their defense has played pretty well considering what they have. With when you have a new coach and a new quarterback, and a lot of your players usually leaving in free agency, it's hard to see your team play relatively well with what they have. But Giants, they still managed to fight to the end, and have the Eagles actually competed. We could have probably seen the Giants actually be the NFC champs rather than the Eagles, but it is what it is. And I think I'm going to give the Giants Micah Parsons. I see linebacker being one of the big priorities. I know their defense could definitely plan on being better. And I think by having a leader in that defensive unit, all of a sudden this Giants defense, you could put in top 10.
I mean, in my last mock draft, I think I had Micah Parsons going to the Giants. Look, as much as you hate to say it, linebacker is becoming kind of like a devalued position, at least the Mike position, the middle of the defense, kind of becoming a devalued position in the NFL. That is why Micah Parsons slides down the board a little bit. Not because, he's still probably the best defensive player in this class, right? And he slides to a general manager and Dave Gettleman that sort of is more of an old school GM and values running the football and playing hard-nosed, tough defense. I think Micah Parsons to the Giants is a perfect fit here. Next up, I have the San Francisco 49ers on the clock here. Oh, Trey Lance would fit perfectly here, but John Lynch said they do not envision themselves taking a first-round quarterback. So it looks like they're going to be sticking it out with Jimmy Garoppolo or maybe another quarterback, who knows. And Caleb Farley is here at pick number 12. He's the 12th ranked player according to the Draft Network. I think the value fits very well there at the Virginia Tech corner, you can make a case that he is the number one corner in the draft. So they need help at corner, and you pair him with Richard Sherman. I like the duo.
All right, so there he goes. So now I have the Los Angeles Chargers, which is still weird to say because even though it's been a couple years already, they have no fans in LA, and I can't wait to see how empty SoFi Stadium is going to be when they do host a game. SoFi. That being said, they're good at quarterback. They need a new head coach, and I know someone's going to be there's going to be a lot of coaches competing for that job because you already have your quarterback set. You already have a really good defense. You know, you have a lot of good things working for you. So to have high picks as well, I think just from that coaching standpoint, to make this team better, you probably want to just go ahead and focus on protecting your new quarterback, making sure he's good. You already have Austin Eckler at running back. So all you really need to do is just make your offensive line better, and all of a sudden the entire playbook opens up for you. So that being said, with the 13th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select. I'm just going to go based off who's best available. Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern.
Yeah, he's Slater, my offensive tackle number 3 at this point. Christian Darrisaw actually is my offensive tackle number 2. The Draft Network has him a little bit lower, but it's just the way the board works. But I agree with you 100%. Actually, as far as coaching jobs are concerned, I think that the Chargers are the best coaching job for a head coach. If I really like what they have going there, a good defense, good quarterback, good receivers. They really just need an offensive line to protect Justin Herbert. So hopefully with a new coach, the Chargers can make that push for the playoffs. Pick number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. I am on the clock here. They need help on the offensive line and on the defensive line. They need help in the secondary. But I'm going to we're going to go back-to-back tackles here. Christian Darrisaw, the tackle out of Virginia Tech, second Virginia Tech player taken in the top 15. Not something that you really see nowadays, but there you go. Christian Darrisaw, you can move him to guard if you want because they also need help on the interior, but he's a guy that can move all across guard or tackle. And if you're going to kind of run it back with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, got to be able to protect him, and I think he fits the scheme very, very well. So,
all right, that being in mind, with the pick in the overall draft,
you have a tough choice here.
I know this one's actually pretty hard because Belichick can manage to make anything work, and we never seen the Patriots be this high up in the draft.
You could go quarterback or receiver here. I think those are your 2 options. Look, it's very unlikely Cam Newton was on a 1-year deal. I don't know if they want to bring him back, but if they do, they're going to need receiving help because their wide receiving core is horrible.
Yeah, I mean...
or Belichick could just pick a defensive player because it's Belichick, right? So,
what's sad is it's more realistic to see the Patriots all of a sudden just trade down.
We can't trade in this one, though.
I know, but I'm just saying it's more realistic that somehow the Patriots would have like 24th round picks and like 10 third round picks rather than actually have a top 15 first round pick.
Yeah.
This is a team that pretty much needs a lot. I think they're okay at running back. They have guys that are good enough that basically work under Belichick's system.
Yeah.
They definitely need help at tight end. If they go, all right, you know what? I'm just going to say that they'll find a free agent quarterback route, kind of like what they did, except they'll find one that fits more Belichick's system rather than trying to work around Cam Newton. And they will get where'd he go? I know he's not there.
Who are you looking for?
I was looking for the tight end out of Florida. I was looking for that safe pick jump ball guy.
Well, there's a certain wide receiver on the board.
Yeah.
Who was the number 1 over Devontae Smith before he got hurt. So, does New England take the chance with a guy that's injury prone? I don't know, but I don't know, man.
You know what? This is the way. This is how New England likes to do things. They just get weapons at the top and keep players at the bottom. Jalen Waddle, you are a New England Patriots.
Ooh, I love that. That is scary, man.
It is terrifying.
Yeah.
Because now all Bill Belichick needs is a quarterback from southeastern Massachusetts State, and he's good to go.
All right, here we go. Pick number 16, the Arizona Cardinals on the board. Big needs here: cornerback, running back, edge rusher, tight end. Offensive line is obviously a huge issue, but there's one player that had a great performance over the last few weeks. Najee Harris, the running back going to go in the first round as well. Probably Travis Etienne might too. Not something I would do here, but I think it's very realistic that he could end up going to the Cardinals at pick number 16. Kind of take a little bit of pressure off of Kyler Murray. I think a read option with Najee Harris and Kyler Murray is very scary and very it's like impossible to defend, right? So
if there is a team that needs a running back in the first round, it's got to be Arizona. I mean, it fits the offense perfectly. You know, they're a super spread out Kyler Murray dual threat quarterback type of offense. The one thing that would complement that is having a dominant running back like Najee Harris, who can run over people, who can juke people, who can hurdle people. He can do it all at running back. So yeah, I think that's the pick.
All right, you are on the clock with the Oakland Raiders, your favorite team. So lucky you.
I'm glad I picked odds today. All right. The Las Vegas Raiders with the 17th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. This is a team that needs a lot.
It's got to be defense, right?
It's going to be defense. It's going to be defense. I mean, other than they could use a good quarterback offensively, defense is their biggest priority. And I'm surprised that the safety position is not as prioritized as I thought on this website, because I really think they've given up way too many deep bombs. Even corners not that high up as well, but I understand that we already drafted a corner last year in the draft. I guess it would be good to get an edge rusher. Let's see. Joseph Osai out of Texas. He's the best available one according to this website.
Gregory Rousseau is a guy who kind of fallen down the draft boards a little bit out of Miami, a real raw prospect. But coming into the year, he was regarded as edge rusher number one. He just sat out the year. 15 and a half sacks as a sophomore. I think that it's a realistic pick for the Raiders if you want to go that route.
Alabama defensive lineman, but he's interior.
Christian Barmore, absolute stud. Dominated yesterday.
I believe it.
Yeah. JOK is still there.
Moses.
A lot of corners on the board as well. Ultimately,
I guess if we're going to go, you know what, I'm just going to go for the best available secondary, because I know that's what the Raiders need. And that, I believe, is, I hope I'm not scrolling too fast, Eric Stokes, the corner out of Georgia.
He's not the best available corner.
Oh, is he not? Okay, I think I went too fast.
It's JC Horn, I think. Corner out of South Carolina would be the best on the board.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that guy. Oh, yeah, there he is. Yep, just above Rashad Bateman. Okay. Yep. I forgot he's still in the draft. Thank God he fell that far. I thought he'd be taken already. I know how good of a corner he is.
Yeah, he's a very solid corner out of South Carolina, especially when you play in the SEC. I mean,
yeah, it's always safe to get an SEC corner.
All right. Interesting. I am on the pick with the Miami Dolphins after taking Zach Wilson. Now, actually, no. Penei Sewell was the pick here. The Jets are later in the draft, and they had Zach Wilson.
Yes.
Now, this is interesting. Penei Sewell here. And if we're not trading for Deshaun Watson, then I think we need to boost up our weapons, our receiving core. Now, the only question is, which wide receiver are we going to? Probably, yeah. I'm thinking Rashad Bateman. I think he'll be the pick here. Rashad Bateman.
They need a jump ball guy, and as much as I like Devontae Parker, I think Rashad Bateman could really fit that jump ball X receiver guy.
I like Allen Robinson as a comp for Rashad Bateman. I think that they are very similar players, and I'm going to take Rashad Bateman here for the Dolphins.
Nice. All right, the Washington football team with the 19th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. This is a team that needs a lot. It says that their biggest priority is quarterback. However, we know that Heineke is not that bad. And if Ron Rivera wants to go on a physical ground and pound, it doesn't hurt to have a solid backup quarterback who has basically proven that he can at least do his job and do his job pretty well. You know, you're not asking too much from Heineke. So the fact that he did what he did against Tampa Bay's defense, which is not a bad defense, I don't think they'd go quarterback with the 15th pick. It's hard to see any division champ really draft a quarterback. Um,
Let me see. What else do they need?
but they can't go anywhere else. They definitely need help at wide receiver.
Well, Allen Robinson's not going to be there next season. So
Yeah.
he's a free agent and he's gone.
They,
Hmm.
well, their tight ends are okay. Nothing great. Defense could get a little bit better. You know what? I think I'll give them. Oh, they're pretty far low. You know, they
Well,
already have Chase Young, so they're not getting Joseph Osai.
well, I mean,
Not
if it's
getting
me,
Travis
I'm
Etienne.
going either tackle or wide receiver because the offensive line's bad since Trent Williams is gone now,
All
and
right, so I'll
they need
narrow
wide
it
receivers
down.
for
Who
sure.
do you think is the overall better prospect then? Jalen Mayfield, the offensive tackle out of Michigan, or Terrace Marshall Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU?
Um, if it's me, I would take the tackle here. I think that you already have Terry McLaurin. Chris Sims has had a good season. And I think that you have a chance to pick up a guy in free agency as well. It's a really, really good wide receiver free agent class, as we've been talking about. So if I'm them, I'm looking to replace Trent Williams, a franchise left tackle, a Hall of Fame left tackle. So you got to
All
replace
right.
him.
All right. Well, with that in mind, Washington football team, you have now acquired Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan.
All
Click.
right. I don't hate the pick. Here we go. Pick number 20. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Trey Lance is going to be a pick here for the Bears. They need a new quarterback. They need a franchise guy. And yeah, there you go. I mean, he had to be taken in the first round. I know. I honestly, if I'm the Colts, I was hoping he would last one more pick. But Trey Lance, the pick for me for the Bears. Now the real question is, what you going to do with the Colts?
Well, this is one of those teams that's hard to decide what they're going to pick with the 21st overall because you don't even know what they're going to do in the offseason or what their plan is with Phillip Rivers or if they decide to go the veteran quarterback round the following season.
Oh, Mac Jones is available.
Mac Jones is available. He's not really. Oh, you know what? That is not a bad pick because they really just need a guy who can do his job. They do have an O line that will protect him.
Uh-huh.
Right, will design plays that will get T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell and Pittman Jr. open. Yeah, actually, that's not a bad pick. Where is Mac Jones?
He is the 34th ranked prospect according to the Draft Network. I think that he has played himself into the first round. I think he's a first round talent and a first round player. I think that do I think he's going to be like a Trevor Lawrence? No. But I think he's one of these guys, like a Kirk Cousins guy, that if you surround him with talent, he will be able to do his job. And yeah, so I mean, I agree with Mac Jones being the pick here.
Yeah,
Back-to-back quarterbacks late in the first round.
yeah. I mean, if he falls that far, I mean, Kyle Trask is still available too. But no, Mac Jones has definitely got his stock up this past off season or this past season, especially playing really well in the national championship game against Ohio State, which is a program that is known for having a good defense year after year. It just seems like the perfect match for Frank Reich to have a young quarterback that's talented, fits well into the system. You are an Indianapolis Colt, my friend. All right.
All right. The Tennessee Titans are now on the clock. Travis Etienne? No, I'm just kidding. Not a chance. Not a chance here.
Yeah, you don't
Um,
draft a running back in the first round, especially after a 2,000-yard rusher.
well, it's definitely got to be a defensive player here. And I don't think Jadeveon Clowney will be back. He was a 1-year deal. I think he's going to be back. So I'm going to go edge rusher here. I'm going to go Gregory Rousseau, the edge rusher out of Miami, who my light just did it again. What is going on right now?
Your place is haunted, man.
It might be the plug-in. Well, interesting shenanigans going on here on the first podcast, on the first YouTube podcast, of course, right? But Gregory Rousseau, a guy who started out as a consensus top 10 player in this class, has kind of fallen down the draft board because, a lot of people he opted out of the season. People looked at his tape and were like, weren't that impressed, but he did have 15 and a half sacks as a sophomore. So I'm going to take the raw upside here if I'm Tennessee. Hopefully he can turn into something next to Jeffrey Simmons on the interior. One of my favorite players, Jeffrey Simmons. And yeah, I like this pick for the Titans. Look, you said it first. You said it earlier. If you're going to have this offense constructed around Derrick Henry, you have to be able to play good defense. This is the first step to that.
That is true. That is true. All right. Well, with that in mind,
Yes. So you pick. So Zach Wilson was a pick here earlier.
Yes.
Keep that in mind.
See, I see Tucker still on the board. He did play well at USC, but I am looking more outside in regards to protection. So it looks like, where is he? I saw him. I don't know why I can't just select the offensive tackle position on my position thing.
Why not?
It doesn't give me the option. It's it only gives me 8 positions to choose from.
That's strange. Which tackle are you looking for? Are you going tackle?
I'm going offensive tackle.
Okay. Is there a certain tackle from Alabama that you're trying to look for?
That was the one, yes, I was looking for.
He's the 29th ranked player.
Alex
Leatherwood, yep.
There we go. I finally got it to scroll at that exact pinpoint.
Hey, I mean, look, if you're going to draft a franchise quarterback, you got to protect him.
Simple. Right? Learn from Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is an interesting spot here. If Mac Jones was available, I would have taken him here for the Steelers. Offensive tackle in need. You need help at corner, and you need a quarterback. So I'm going to go ahead and take Kyle Trask here, a guy who's actually very similar to Big Ben. I mean, he's 6'5", 240. So, yeah, I'm going to take Kyle Trask. He's similar in stature, but in play style, I think they're very different players. I'm going to take Kyle Trask here. Look, you need a quarterback, and I do think Kyle Trask will be a first or second round pick, and it's more realistic he'll get taken here later in the first round anyway. So they need – look, it's time to move on from Big Ben. Will it happen? I don't know, but that's what I'm doing.
All right. Well, with that in mind –
ooh.
I have the Jacksonville Jaguars next.
I already took a franchise quarterback.
I already got Trevor Lawrence. Let's see. Ooh. Yeah.
Look, I know I did it earlier in the year. Do not go ETN here.
No. I was
got a running back.
They already got a running back. No. I was not touching running back at all.
I know I did it earlier with the Jets, but it was a joke at that point. So
yeah, no. Yeah. Man. I don't think the offensive tackle here is good enough to just solely rely on for protecting Trevor Lawrence. I think they'll go free agency if they feel like they need to upgrade their offensive line at this point.
I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I don't think that the offense in Jacksonville is as bad as everybody thinks. I just think
I don't think it is either. I just think they needed help at quarterback, really, and maybe.
Yeah. I like how the draft has gone on, and we've kind of just basically made every single pick together at this point.
Yeah, I know we were supposed to be taking turns, and now we're just like, well, I don't know, because a lot of these teams, because now we're starting to get into that playoff picture of the teams that made it to the playoffs.
Well, so, not Jacksonville, but
yeah, well, man.
Honestly, if you're Jacksonville, maybe is there any wide receivers available? Like, it's not an immediate.
That's what I was thinking. I was looking at Terrace Marshall. Jr.
I mean, it's not an immediate need because you have a decent wide receiving core, and maybe you can go out and get one in free agency. But your goal with a young quarterback should be to surround him with as much talent as possible on the offensive side of the ball. And I mean, I don't hate taking a receiver here if that's what you want to do.
I mean, LSU wide receivers are pretty safe to get. All right, Terrace Marshall, you are a Jacksonville Jaguar, and you get to be catching passes from one of the next best quarterbacks to enter the league.
Yep. All right, here we go. My Cleveland Browns are on the clock. Let me see. My second favorite team. Um,
Never
Ed,
thought I would ever hear you say that.
dude, I mean, I'm just a big
Just
Baker.
last year, I was calling them the Cleveland Clowns.
Well, you can't call them that anymore.
I know they're a serious football team.
Hmm.
Very.
Well, I think if I'm the Browns and this guy's still on the board, he's the perfect modern linebacker. He's a perfect coverage linebacker. Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa, aka JOK, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. I'm gonna take him here if I'm the Browns, and he's available. You need help at linebacker, and he's the perfect modern linebacker. You need your linebackers to cover nowadays, and he could do that. So you were up with the Bucks. I think.
Right.
Ooh, the Bucks.
Tampa Bay is interesting. I do see them going lineman. Either they could go edge rusher, but I think their defense is not that bad. Or they could go offensive tackle if they do plan on having Tom Brady for another 2 years.
See, I don't think they'll go tackle because Tristan Wirfs is really good. Um,
You know what?
maybe the
That
interior.
interior lineman from USC is available. I might go that route.
Let's see, who are the other ones? Creed Humphreys there, Wyatt Davis. Um,
Yeah, Elijah Barrett Tucker.
Elijah Vera Tucker. Hey, I mean, I think
I like the I think they go extra security here and make sure Tom's safe.
yeah, I okay. Elijah Vera
Get a
Tucker.
young line. Why not?
All right. Um, I'm gonna consider Travis Etienne there. I mean, Fournette. All their running backs are on like 1 year deals, so I mean, I don't know. It's not the craziest thing. And I have the Ravens here, edge rusher, tight end, interior. I think I'm gonna go edge rusher here, but I'm not gonna go Joseph Asai. I'm gonna go Aziz Olawaria, the edge rusher out of Georgia, who I absolutely think is a stud and a first round talent. Happy that he's here at pick number 28. You have both of their edge rushers on a 1 year deal. I don't think you're going to have the money to bring them both back. So Aziz Olawaria, an instant starter here for the Baltimore Ravens.
I love that Raven defense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you get the
Okay.
Saints. This is interesting.
Whew.
All these
Well,
teams, once you get down the board, the needs start becoming less clear, and it's really interesting.
whew, man.
No quarterback available here.
No.
I think that Sean Payton wants to ride it out with Taysom Hill anyways. So
Man, I mean, their defense isn't bad. Their offense is really good. They just really, oh man.
I would strongly. I don't know. Are there any there? I don't think there's any linebackers that you would consider taking here.
There's a lot of these guys are pretty low. I mean, this is where we get near the four. This is pretty much second round talent at this point.
Yeah.
You're kind of
Um,
tinkering.
I would in years. I mean, not in years past. In weeks past, I would consider Sean Wade here, but his draft stock has plummeted. I think most people consider him a safety now. Um, honestly, I might consider wide receiver here. I mean,
That's what I was looking at.
it's basically a luxury pick at this point, right?
Yeah.
Kadarius Toney, Rondell Moore is still here.
Chris Olave, Ahmad Ross. Ooh, Ahmad Ross St. Brown. That's a good one.
Hmm.
Rondell Moore. Oh, Moore at Purdue.
Yeah, Rondell Moore's there. I don't know why he's sliding down people's draft boards, but
I know. Last time I checked, he was really good. I'm gonna give them Rondell Moore. I really think he'd be a solid receiver under the system.
he's only 5'9", but this guy's basically my comp is Tavon Austin with hands. So say what you want about that.
That's a solid yards after catch guy, which last time I checked fits the Saints system anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And once you get a new quarterback, you'll be able to actually throw the football deep, right? So
Yeah.
depending on if that is Taysom Hill, Jameis . Or somebody else, The Buffalo Bills here, pick 30. A lot of interesting ways I could go here. They could use a corner. I could go wide receiver here if they don't envision. I don't know what Cole Beasley's contract situation is like, or um, let me see. Zach Moss, they have on a rookie deal, so I can't go ETN here.
Oh,
I think I'm just going to take a lineman. Offensive tackle, I feel like is a need for them. They can move this guy to tackle or have him play the interior. I'm gonna go Leon Etchenberg, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. If they're, I mean, I haven't watched his tape yet, but there is a certain stigma around offensive linemen that come out of Notre Dame, and it's that they're very good. So Notre Dame, just a school that is known for having great offensive linemen.
I'm gonna find him so I can just go ahead and pick him, but I can't.
He was like the 31st ranked player, I think, 31 or something.
Huh. All right.
Watch her forehead.
All right. So that means I have what? Green Bay?
You have Green Bay and I have the Chiefs. Ooh. Well, looks like ETN is not going to be a first round pick. Both these teams got running backs. So
I really think it wouldn't hurt if Aaron Rodgers got a weapon.
yeah, oh yeah. I agree.
He does need a weapon. I mean, he's basically just been throwing it to 2 wide receivers the entire season. Everyone else are like back running backs, or I don't know. Like I feel like Aaron Jones has just as many catches as, as the receivers under Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
No, look. Wait, actually, no. I need to go back to the top of the board. Let's see, Kadarius Toney, Chris Olave, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins. Let me scroll down just a hair. Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss.
Bro.
Wallace out of Oklahoma State.
How many times, Light?
Is that light still haunting you?
Oh, dude, it just flashed again, man. Dude, one of my favorite players is ranked 157. Oh,
that's low. I don't think the 31st.
Justin Ross out of Clemson is ranked 157.
Well,
stock plummeted.
Go ahead and give Green Bay Amon-Ra St. Brown.
All right. And now I'm on the clock with the final pick. Am I crazy to take a wide receiver here? I mean, they got a lot of impending. Demarcus Robinson's gone. Mecole Hardman's you're gonna have to pay. Sammy Watkins has a 1-year deal. He's gone. So I think it's possible they could take a wide receiver and just kind of keep the same like.
I don't know. I mean, they could, but I don't know. I drop that just to get a filler.
I'm just going to go interior offensive line, and it's honestly between Wyatt Davis and Creed Humphreys. I think I'm just going to go Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State, and that will conclude the NFL draft. Well, the first round of the NFL draft. All right.
All right, now to round 2. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, we're going to do a 7-round mock draft, guys.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I would go back and list every single pick again, but I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to put it down in the comment section down below. It'll be the pinned comment, the mock draft that we just created. So yeah, I mean, and I think that'll actually conclude the first YouTube podcast of the Stampede. For those of you listening on Spotify and on Apple Podcast, why don't you guys come over to YouTube and you could see our beautiful faces. You can leave a like on the video. You could subscribe. And then those of you that are watching on YouTube, why don't you guys go on over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave the 5 stars, leave a good review, follow the podcast, whatever platform you guys are listening on, do us all a favor and support us in any way possible so that maybe one day me and Ashton could sit here and do this full time for a job. I promise you guys that the quality of this will continue to get better. And hopefully, as time goes on, we get better at what we do. Even though I think we're already pretty freaking good at what we do. So,
We're good, but we can always be better. And I think that's what's great about sports in general too. Is like, even some of the best teams, like like University of Alabama's football program, they're dominating every 2-3 years, and yet they always find ways to somehow just get better. We always be amazed by all the players that they end up getting drafted in the NFL, but also the players that have high school, they're just the same size, speed, athleticism, and that's just the way life is. We just gotta be ambitious. We gotta focus on being better, no matter how much freaking good we think we are.
no, I agree. Hey, let's make 2021 our year. As cliche as that sounds, let's make this year, our year, right? We're just come
Do it.
out, we're gonna make great content for you guys, and I'm very excited to start this journey with you, Ashton, and with the rest of the viewers here on YouTube, as well as Spotify, Apple Music. Already been doing it on those platforms for a while now, but the links to all of our social medias, our Twitter and our Instagrams, both of us, will be down below. The link to the Spotify and our Apple podcast will be down below. So you guys can go ahead and follow and support us there. And if there are any people that would like to sponsor the podcast or, become, if there's any sponsorship businesses that want to reach out, our business email is down below, thestampedepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Stampede. Ashton, do you have anything else you want to add?
I'm just glad to be back to be part of the show. Glad to be considered a co-host. I'm glad to be working with you once again. We already have a lot of great experience, and we already have a good friendship that's lasted for over a decade now. And yeah, again, just to all the fans and all the listeners out here, help us out. Give us those likes and subscriptions. We're doing everything we can to make this the best possible sports podcast for all you guys.
All right. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be the end of the Stampede, and we'll see you next time. Peace.